Good morning, good evening. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing, we wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you joining us again, we wish to welcome you in. Quick shout out to our sponsors, Affinity WES, that's on Twitter and Facebook, Affinity Writing and Editing Services. If you do anything with words, they can help. Also over on Etsy.com, Hippie Witch Vibes. That's Hippie Witch Vibes. It's an eclectic collection that the owner is always expanding. So head on over to Etsy.com, type in Hippie Witch Vibes, and just see what's on offer. You won't be disappointed. Once again, you can see we're actually coming to you from the darkness. Not complete darkness, but it just feels right to record about now. This isn't really the backdrop I had in mind. Just give me a second, and here we go. Now, for anybody who's familiar with a dartboard, it's a dartboard. This is really how I feel the response to the pandemic has been carried out. It hasn't been pretty at all. And there's a lot of questions that are left going over in people's minds. The vaccine. Where do I start with the vaccine? First, there was this big race to produce it. Pfizer got all the press, and I've covered Pfizer on this show before. But the curious thing is, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and everybody else came up with a 2-dose vaccine. That's right, not just one, but 2. This is a very curious thing. See, companies are inherently selfish, and they want to do something that sets them apart from everybody else. So, if somebody came out with a single-dose vaccine, they would have had a competitive edge. They could have charged more. They could have had exclusive distribution rights to that particular vaccine. The flu vaccine, which protects against many more strains, comes in a single dose. I'm sure most people at some point in their lives have had a vaccine against something put in them. And generally they protect against 2 or 3 things. And they don't give multiple shots. They generally give 1 or 2 and then give you a couple weeks to recover and then give you the next one. Well, this one, for a single virus, is taking 2 shots. Now make no mistake, the Silverlight Show believes pro-choice. Make your own research, make your own mind up. I'm not going to tell you to go get it. I'm not going to tell you not to go get it. Only you can decide that. There's plenty of information out there about what's good, about what's bad. Personally, I liked what Simon Dan had to say about it because it comes from a person who actually has a pretty good idea of what he's talking about. Or perhaps I just like him because of the way he slags flat earthers. We'll get into that in another video. But what Simon Dan essentially said is, realistically, even with the vaccine doing damage, it's doing less damage than the virus. And that's an important thing to think about. It's a fairly terrible virus when it hits. It goes after the lungs. Now, for those of you who don't know, I suffer from asthma. And I suffer from allergies. What a wonderful 1-2 punch. And not being able to breathe sucks. It's absolutely horrible. Your whole body is tensing up. You're gasping for air, kind of like what you see in the movies when they pull a diving mask off or when they magically bring somebody back to life with CPR. By the way, it doesn't really work that way in real life. They just start breathing again and you have to monitor them. They don't miraculously and then come back perfectly okay after a couple breaths and a couple chest pumps. No, you're breaking ribs in there. So anything cardiovascular is something to be feared. The real question is, why have they still not disclosed where this virus came from? We spent all this money researching things. We spent all this money trying to figure out a 2-dose vaccine, but we still don't know where the heck this thing came from. We have an idea. Supposedly it's the farmers' markets in a certain city in a certain red state that is not inside the United States. Because officially they do not like to be accused of that. So I'm going to respect their wishes. As draconian as they are, it's their country. I don't agree with it. I spent the last video detailing how they would have a velvet revolution, but they don't want people to associate them with the pandemic. Okay, you got to do damage control any way you can. I get it. But once again, we come back to the problem, why 2 shots? With tetanus, it didn't take 2 shots. Polio didn't take 2 shots, and I think we can all agree polio was far deadlier. Smallpox didn't take 2 shots. It was a single vaccination, and we wiped that virus off the face of the earth. Now, the current pandemic is probably not going anywhere. It's going to become part of the seasonal flu shot package. Whether that's in a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is, it's going to be included. So we can cry, whine, whatever we want to do right now. It's coming. And employers are going to use this and start saying if you don't get a flu shot, you're going to wind up not being able to work in a lot of places. Handling food, you need a flu shot. You're working with securities, you need a flu shot. If you're doing anything whatsoever where you touch something somebody else has touched, including mail, I mean, how many people have seriously been handling their junk mail carefully? How many people have been opening their mail with gloves? I bet not many. And even though we're starting to get the population vaccinated, people are still carrying on just as though it's everyday life. The government where the Silverlight show comes from has decided to extend the lockdown because they want to make sure it's the last lockdown. I don't think so. This is still my conjecture. I still think in September, in around there, we're going to get a final wave worldwide. And I say that with some confidence because some countries that had the virus completely wiped out still got reinfected. A virus is a beautiful piece of machinery. I don't want to call it life. I just want to call it a beautiful piece of machinery. It multiplies millions of times inside one person, and then it spreads. And every time it multiplies, it can mutate. And if there's a 5% chance of it mutating over 1 million times, it's going to be mutating about 500,000 times. That's a lot of mutants. Now, a lot of those mutations do nothing. A lot of them do a lot of things. Fortunately, if you sneeze one of the mutations onto the wall in front of me here, nobody particularly will be touching that. I mean, there we go. That's the first time that's been touched in quite some time. So if I sneezed there, nobody would get the virus. It would die before anybody touched it again. And that particular variant would die out. But if I sneezed totally by accident while I was doing something and some poor soul was to come along with a weak immune system, it could be devastating. But the question always comes back to why no company is going further. There's still money to be made. There's still vaccine doses to be sold. I mean, the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, France, European Union are buying way more doses than they need, and then they're shipping them off to nations that aren't quite so well off. We're probably going to need a booster shot next year, and everybody will. So it'll be a 3-needle vaccine, because there'll be another variant coming along. Like I said, look at September. And I'd be if it won't be September, it'll be sometime around then. Because September is also when they start converting the fuel over to supposedly produce winter heating oil. Remember the old burners in the houses? Yeah, there's a few houses that still have it, but the oil industries tell us every single year that they have to convert over from one to the other. It's ludicrous in my opinion, but they make a big deal out of it. You've had at least 80 years to get your refineries up and going, and you still can't do it. But we've been getting these spikes of the pandemic around the same time that gas prices go up and down. It's a beautiful way to distract us, and it's distracted us for nearly 2 years. So the question is, why hasn't a company decided to do better? It's a beautiful niche market. You would blow everybody out of the water right now by saying we have one needle, you take it, you're done. But no, every one of them went with a different model. They used different formulations, different preparations. They even are stored at different temperatures. But they all use a 2-needle process. It's very curious. Just like the dartboard here, it seems like they all decided instead of throwing and researching different things, they just chose this spot and said, we're going for there. It doesn't matter that 3 times 20 is worth more than 50. We're going to go for 50. Anyway, it's just very curious that normally competitive companies are all in lockstep with the 2-needle process. It gets my conspiracy senses going. Just something to mull over in your head. Thank you for joining us on the Silverlight Show. If you support this show, a like and a subscribe are always welcome, and please share and tell your friends. If you buy a book on sale for 99 cents for the ebook, it helps the show directly. And the paperbacks that we have as well are also very helpful. But aside from that, thank you all for listening, and we hope everyone has a great day.